The woman my son was about to marry accused me of hitting her. Said I slapped her right across the face. Said I lost control like some kind of animal. And the worst part? My own son believed her. Have you ever been blamed for something you didn't do by someone you tried to love? Someone who sat at your table, ate your food, smiled in your face, and then turned around and destroyed your name? That's what happened to me. My name is Franklin Durrell. I'm 68 years old, and I've never raised my hand to a woman in my entire life. But none of that mattered when Selena Hartwell decided I was standing between her and what she wanted. It was a Tuesday evening when Bennett showed up at my door. My son. My only child. The one person I had left after my wife Lorraine passed 8 years ago. He was pale, shaking, and he wouldn't look me in the eye. That's when I knew something was terribly wrong. "What did you do, Dad?" His voice cracked like he was about to cry. I didn't understand. Didn't know what he was talking about. Then he told me. Selena had called him hysterical, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She said I attacked her. That I hit her when she came by to borrow some tablecloths for the wedding. She even had a bruise to prove it. Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. I stood there in my doorway, looking at my son, and I couldn't find words. My hands started trembling. Not from anger. From shock. From the sick feeling spreading through my chest like poison. "Son, I swear to you," I finally managed. "I have never laid a hand on that woman. Never." But he wouldn't meet my eyes. He just kept staring at the ground, jaw clenched tight. "She has a bruise, Dad. I saw it." She showed me a picture. That's when it hit me. She'd planned this. The whole thing. The argument about the tablecloths wasn't about decorations or sentimentality. It was bait. A trap. And I'd walked right into it. I tried to explain. Tried to tell him what really happened. How she'd come over demanding Lorraine's old lace tablecloths. How I'd said no because those belonged to my late wife, and they were all I had left of her. How Selena got angry and stormed out. But nothing I said mattered. She'd already poisoned him against me. "She's afraid to be around you," Bennett said quietly. "She doesn't feel safe." The words cut deeper than any knife. My own son thought I was dangerous. Thought I was capable of hurting someone. Everything I'd taught him, everything I'd tried to be as a father, gone in one lie. "So what happens now?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Bennett finally looked up at me. His eyes were red. "You can't come to the wedding, Dad. I'm sorry. But I have to protect her." That night I sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at Lorraine's photograph. I wasn't just angry. I was humiliated. Heartbroken. The whole town would hear about this by morning. In small places like ours, rumors spread faster than wildfires. But I had no idea that in 3 days, everything would change. Because Selena Hartwell made one critical mistake. She forgot that the truth always finds a way. I first met Selena Hartwell 6 months before the wedding, on a Sunday afternoon in spring. Bennett brought her to my house with this glow on his face I hadn't seen in years. He'd been alone for so long after his last relationship ended badly. Seeing him happy again made me want to believe this was good. That maybe he'd found what I once had with Lorraine. Selena stepped out of Bennett's car wearing a white sundress and carrying a pie. She had dark hair, bright eyes, and a smile that looked practiced. Too perfect. Like she'd rehearsed it in a mirror. "Mr. Durrell," she said, extending her hand. "I've heard so much about you. Bennett talks about you constantly." Her grip was firm. Confident. Maybe too confident for a first meeting. But I smiled back because my son was watching, and I wanted him to see me trying. "She said she was a nurse." Said she worked long shifts at the hospital downtown. But something about it didn't add up. I never once saw her in scrubs. Never heard her mention coworkers or difficult patients the way Lorraine used to talk about her job at the school. It was like Selena's life had no details. Just smooth, empty answers. The pie was store-bought. I knew it the second I tasted it. Lorraine used to bake, and I learned the difference between homemade and grocery store years ago. But I didn't say anything. I just nodded and told Selena it was delicious. Bennett beamed. He kept looking at her like she was some kind of miracle. "Dad, isn't she amazing?" "She seems very nice," I said carefully. But there was something in Selena's eyes that unsettled me. You know how some people smile, but their eyes stay cold? Empty. That was her. Like she was performing, playing a part. And I was just an obstacle she had to get around. The first real red flag came 2 weeks later. Selena started showing up alone. She'd stop by on weekday afternoons when Bennett was at work, claiming she wanted to get to know me better. Wanted to bond with her future father-in-law. But her visits never felt genuine. She'd walk through my house slowly, looking at everything like she was taking inventory. Touching Lorraine's old furniture. Opening cabinets. Asking questions that made my skin crawl. "So this house has been in your family a long time?" she asked one day, running her fingers along the mantel. 40 years, I said. "Built most of it myself." She nodded thoughtfully. "And who's it going to after you?" I stared at her. "Excuse me. I mean, have you thought about putting things in Bennett's name? You know, for tax purposes. Estate planning." I forced a laugh. "I'm not planning on dying anytime soon, Selena." She smiled that tight smile again. "Of course not. I'm just thinking ahead. For Bennett's sake." That's when I realized this wasn't about getting to know me. It was about getting to know what I had. What Bennett stood to inherit. She was calculating, measuring, planning. Another time, she said something that made my blood run cold. We were sitting on the porch, and she looked out at the yard, at the old oak tree where Lorraine and I used to sit on summer evenings. "You know, it's kind of sad how some parents make their children wait until they die to have anything." I didn't respond. Just stared at her until she looked away. Bennett didn't see any of it. When I tried to bring up my concerns gently, he'd laugh it off. "Dad, she's just trying to connect with you. She wants you to like her." But it wasn't connection. It was strategy. As the wedding date got closer, Selena started changing how she spoke to me. The sweetness turned sharp. The politeness turned into corrections. If I offered advice, she'd smile and say, "That's cute, Franklin. But people don't really live like that anymore." She started calling me old-fashioned, out of touch, and Bennett would just stand there, shrinking a little, trying to keep the peace. Love makes fools of good men. I'd learned that watching my son bend and fold himself into whatever shape she wanted. Then came the day she crossed the line. The day that set everything in motion. She wanted Lorraine's tablecloths. Selena showed up at my door on a Wednesday afternoon with a box of wedding decorations and that same practiced smile. But this time, there was something different in her eyes. Something harder. "Franklin, I need to borrow some things for the reception," she said, walking past me without waiting for an invitation. I followed her into the living room. "What kind of things?" "Tablecloths. Bennett mentioned your wife had some beautiful vintage lace ones. They'd be perfect for the head table." My chest tightened. Those belonged to Lorraine. "I know," she said, like that settled it. "That's why they'd be so meaningful. It's like having her there at the wedding." But the way she said it, I knew she didn't care about meaning or memory. She just wanted something old and pretty for her pictures. Those aren't decorations, Selena. They're all I have left that still smells like her. Lavender and sunshine. I keep them in the closet, and sometimes I just sit there and remember. Her face changed. The mask slipped. You're really going to make this about you? This is Bennett's wedding day. Our day. And you're worried about some old tablecloths. They're not just tablecloths, I said quietly. They're memories. She stepped closer, eyes flashing. You know what I think, Franklin? I think you can't stand seeing Bennett happy with someone else. I think you want him to stay stuck in the past with you, mourning someone who's been gone for 8 years. The words stung because they were designed to. She was pushing buttons, testing how far she could go. That's not fair, I said. Isn't it? You've been cold to me from the start. You never wanted me with your son. And now you're using dead woman's tablecloths as an excuse to ruin our wedding. I held my ground. I'm not giving them to you, Selena. I'm sorry, but that's final. Her jaw clenched. For a second, I thought she might scream. Instead, she grabbed her box of decorations and headed for the door. But before she left, she turned back and said something I'll never forget. You're going to regret this. Then she was gone. The door slammed hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there in the silence, heart pounding, wondering if I'd just made a terrible mistake. But those tablecloths were mine. My memory. My grief. And nobody had the right to take that from me. I thought that was the end of it. That Selena would complain to Bennett, maybe pout for a few days, and then move on. I thought wrong. That evening, my phone rang. It was Bennett. His voice was tight, strained. Dad, I need to talk to you. What's wrong? Not over the phone. I'm coming over. He hung up before I could respond. 20 minutes later, I heard his truck pull into the driveway. The engine cut off. Silence. Then footsteps. Heavy. Angry. When I opened the door, Bennett looked like a stranger. His face was pale, his hands were shaking, and his eyes were red like he'd been crying or trying not to. What did you do? He asked, voice barely above a whisper. What are you talking about? Selena called me. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. She said you attacked her, Dad. Said you hit her. The world tilted. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. That's not true. Bennett, I swear to God, that's not true. She has a bruise, he shouted. I saw it. She sent me a picture. I didn't touch her. We argued about the tablecloths, and she left angry. That's all that happened. But I could see it in his eyes. He didn't believe me. His fiancée had cried and shown him proof, and now his father was just making excuses. She's terrified of you, Bennett said. She said you lost control. That you grabbed her and slapped her across the face. I have never hit a woman in my entire life, I said, my voice breaking. Your mother raised me better than that. I raised you better than that. Bennett looked away. I don't know what to believe. Believe your father. Believe the man who's never lied to you. But he just shook his head. I can't take that risk. Selena doesn't feel safe around you. So I'm asking you not to come to the wedding. The words hung in the air like smoke. Not to come. To my own son's wedding. You're uninviting me? I'm protecting my future wife. And just like that, it was done. Bennett left without another word. I stood in my doorway, watching his taillights disappear down the road, and felt something inside me break. Selena Hartwell had destroyed me with a single lie. And the worst part? My son believed her. The next morning, I woke up to whispers. I could feel them even before I left the house. Small towns are like that. News travels faster than the mail, and bad news travels fastest of all. When I walked into the hardware store to pick up some sandpaper, the clerk barely made eye contact. Mrs. Patterson from the church pulled her granddaughter closer when I passed them on the sidewalk. At the diner, my usual table was suddenly occupied, and nobody offered me another seat. They all knew. Somehow, word had spread that Franklin Durrell had hit his son's fiancée. That I was violent, dangerous, someone to be avoided. I wanted to scream the truth. Stand in the middle of town and tell everyone that Selena was a liar. But I knew how that would look. Desperate. Guilty. Like a man scrambling to cover his tracks. So I stayed quiet. Bought my sandpaper. Walked home alone. Let the rumors swirl around me like vultures. That afternoon, I sat at my kitchen table with Lorraine's photograph in front of me. She was smiling in that picture, wearing the blue dress she loved, standing in front of the oak tree in our yard. I traced her face with my finger and whispered, "I don't know what to do." She would have known. Lorraine always knew how to handle difficult people. She had a way of seeing through lies without ever raising her voice. But she was gone, and I was alone, and my son thought I was a monster. I thought about calling Bennett. Thought about showing up at his apartment and demanding he listen to me. But what good would that do? Selena had already poisoned him. She'd planned this perfectly. The fake bruise. The tears. The timing, just days before the wedding when emotions were high and nobody was thinking clearly. She'd played us all. For 3 days, I barely left the house. I didn't eat much. Didn't sleep well. Just sat in Lorraine's old rocking chair, staring out the window, wondering how my life had come to this. Then, on Friday afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID said Raymond Briggs. Ray was an old friend, a retired police officer who used to work security at the event hall where Bennett's wedding was being held. We'd known each other for 20 years. Good man. Honest. Frank, he said when I answered. I saw something you need to know about. My pulse quickened. What is it? I've been working part-time security at the Riverside Event Hall. You know, the place where your son's getting married tomorrow. Yeah. I was reviewing footage from the parking lot cameras. Routine stuff. But I saw something that didn't sit right. What did you see, Ray? He hesitated. Selena Hartwell. She was here 2 days ago, alone. Late afternoon. I watched her park, get out of her car, and then... He paused. Frank, she hit herself with the car door. On purpose. Then she took out her phone and started taking pictures. The words didn't register at first. Then they did, and my entire body went cold. You're sure? I've got it on video. Clear as day. She opened the driver's side door, positioned herself, then swung it into her own face. Not hard enough to do real damage, but hard enough to leave a mark. Then she stood there, crying, taking selfies. I've seen a lot of crazy things in my career, Frank, but this... I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. I know what people are saying about you, Ray continued. And I knew it didn't sound right. You're not that kind of man. So when I saw this, I figured you'd want to know. Can you send me the footage? Already did. Check your email. I thanked him, hung up, and opened my laptop with shaking hands. The email was there. I clicked the attachment, and the video loaded. There she was. Selena Hartwell, standing beside her car in the event hall parking lot. Looking around to make sure nobody was watching. Then opening the car door, positioning her face, and swinging it closed against her cheek. She winced. Touched her face. Checked it in the car window. Then pulled out her phone, turned on the camera, and started crying. Fake tears. Rehearsed sobs. I watched it 3 times. Each time, my anger grew. Not the hot, explosive kind. The cold, calculating kind. She'd done this. Deliberately. To frame me. To turn my son against me. To get me out of the way. But why? Then it hit me. The inheritance questions. The comments about Bennett waiting too long for what was his. She wanted me gone. Out of the picture. And the fastest way to do that was to make Bennett hate me. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. For the first time in days, I didn't feel hopeless. I felt clear. The wedding was tomorrow. Selena thought she'd won. Thought she'd destroyed me and gotten away with it. She was wrong. I didn't sleep that night. I spent hours sitting in the dark, thinking about what to do with the video. Part of me wanted to send it to Bennett immediately. To text him, call him, force him to watch it. But I knew that wouldn't work. He'd think I'd doctored it somehow. That I was so desperate to clear my name I'd resorted to faking evidence. No. This had to be public. Had to be undeniable. By dawn, I'd made my decision. I was going to that wedding. Not to cause a scene. Not to yell or fight. Just to show the truth. Let people see with their own eyes what kind of woman Bennett was about to marry. I showered, shaved, and put on my best suit. The same black suit I'd worn to Lorraine's funeral 8 years ago. It still fit, though it hung a little looser now. I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Tired. Older. But determined. I called Raymond at 8 in the morning. Ray, I need your help. Anything, Frank. I'm going to the wedding. And I'm going to show that video. Can you meet me there with your tablet? Make sure it's ready to connect to whatever screen they've got set up. There was a pause. You sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. All right. I'll be there. The wedding was at 2 in the afternoon. I arrived at 1:30, parked in the back lot, and sat in my truck for 10 minutes, gathering my nerve. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From the knowledge that in the next hour, everything would change. I walked into the event hall through the side entrance. The place was decorated beautifully. White flowers everywhere. Soft music playing. Guests milling around in their fancy clothes, laughing and taking pictures. Nobody noticed me at first. Then someone did. A woman I didn't recognize. She froze, mouth open, then whispered to the person next to her. Within seconds, heads started turning. Whispers rippled through the room like a cold wind. There he is. The one who hit her. What's he doing here? I kept walking. Kept my head up. Kept my eyes forward. Bennett was near the front of the hall, talking to his best man. He looked good in his tuxedo. Happy. Nervous. Then he saw me, and his face went white. Dad, he said, voice tight. You shouldn't be here. I know, son. But there's something you need to see before you say your vows. Selena appeared from behind a curtain, holding her bouquet. When she saw me, her eyes went wide. Then her face hardened. Franklin, please, she said, her voice trembling like she was scared. Playing the victim even now. Don't do this. But I didn't speak to her. I turned to Raymond, who was standing near the back of the hall, holding his tablet. I nodded. He understood. Raymond walked to the front, connected his tablet to the projector screen that was set up for the wedding slideshow. Within seconds, the image changed from romantic photos of Bennett and Selena to security camera footage. The room went silent. On the screen, clear as day, Selena Hartwell stood alone in a parking lot. Opened her car door. Swung it into her own face. Then took out her phone and started crying. Gasps filled the hall. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered on the floor, but nobody moved. Selena's face went from pale to red. "That's not," she started. "That's edited. He edited that." But her own maid of honor stepped forward, staring at the screen in horror. "Selena, what did you do?" "I didn't. He's lying. He's trying to." "The timestamp's right there," Raymond said calmly, pointing to the corner of the screen. "Tuesday, 4:15 p.m. Riverside Event Hall parking lot. Camera 3. Bennett looked at the screen. Then at Selena. Then at me. His face was a mess of emotions. Confusion. Betrayal. Anger. Heartbreak. "Selena," he said quietly. "Tell me this isn't real." She opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. But no words came out. The truth was right there. Undeniable. Unavoidable. Her mother rushed forward, grabbing her arm. "We're leaving. Now." And just like that, Selena Hartwell's perfect plan fell apart. The silence in that hall was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone just stood there, frozen, staring at the screen like they couldn't believe what they were seeing. But they had to believe it. Because there it was. Clear. Undeniable. Selena hitting herself with that car door. I watched her face change. Watched the panic set in. She tried to keep that victim act going, tried to make her voice shake and her eyes water, but nobody was buying it anymore. The mask had cracked wide open. "This is insane," she said, her voice rising. "You all know him. You've heard the stories. He's trying to manipulate you." But her own bridesmaids were backing away from her. One of them, a young woman with red hair, covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh my God, Selena. You lied. You actually lied about all of it." Selena's mother grabbed her arm tighter, pulling her toward the exit. "We need to leave. Now. Before this gets worse." Bennett just stood there, tuxedo perfect, boutonniere pinned to his chest, staring at the woman he was supposed to marry in less than an hour. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. His hands were shaking. "Bennett," Selena pleaded, reaching for him. "Please. Let me explain." He stepped back like her touch would burn him. "Explain what? How you faked a bruise? How you accused my father of hitting you? How you tried to destroy him?" Tears started rolling down her face. Real ones this time, but not from pain. From being caught. "I did it for us. He was trying to keep us apart. He never wanted me with you. So you lied." Bennett's voice cracked. "You made me think my father was violent? You made me kick him out of my wedding." She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because there was no good explanation for what she'd done. I stood there watching it all unfold, and I didn't feel victory. I felt hollow. Empty. Because even though the truth was out, the damage had already been done. My son had believed her. Had chosen her over me. And that cut deeper than any lie ever could. Raymond disconnected his tablet and walked over to me. "You did the right thing, Frank." I nodded, but I wasn't sure. The right thing doesn't always feel good. Guests started filing out. Some looked at me with apology in their eyes. Others avoided my gaze completely. Selena's family surrounded her like a protective barrier and hustled her out through the side door. I heard her sobbing as they left, heard her mother hissing angry words I couldn't make out. Then it was just me and Bennett and a handful of people cleaning up the mess. Literally and figuratively. Bennett turned to me slowly. His eyes were red, his face pale. "Dad, He stopped. Started again. I don't even know what to say. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Saw the shame and the heartbreak and the confusion all mixed together. Part of me wanted to hug him. Tell him it was okay. But it wasn't okay. Not yet. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying. Inside was Lorraine's wedding ring. The one I'd planned to give him that day. The one that was supposed to be passed down to his bride. I held it for a moment, feeling its weight. Then I put it back in my pocket. "Son," I said quietly, "trust isn't something you apologize for breaking. It's something you rebuild by living differently." He nodded, tears streaming down his face now. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." "I know you are." I turned toward the door. "But sorry doesn't fix this. Not yet." And I walked out. Left my son standing there in his tuxedo with no wedding, no bride, no father by his side. I didn't look back. Didn't let him see the tears in my own eyes. Sometimes the hardest part of love is knowing when to walk away. That night, I sat on my porch watching the sunset. The sky turned orange and pink and purple, and I thought about Lorraine. About how she would have handled this. She would have been heartbroken for Bennett. But she also would have been proud that the truth came out. Truth always finds a way. Even when you think it's buried too deep. Even when lies seem stronger. The next morning, I woke up to a knock on my door. It was Bennett. Bennett stood on my porch holding 2 cups of coffee. His eyes were swollen from crying. He hadn't slept. I could tell by the dark circles and the way he couldn't quite stand up straight, like the weight of everything was crushing him. "Can I come in?" he asked. I stepped aside without a word. Let him pass. Took the coffee he offered even though I wasn't sure I wanted it. We sat at the kitchen table. Same table where I'd sat alone 3 nights ago, believing my son thought I was a monster. Same table where Lorraine and I used to have breakfast every morning for 40 years. Bennett stared into his coffee cup like he was searching for words at the bottom. Finally, he spoke. "She's gone. Left town last night. Her family took her back to wherever she came from. I tried calling her this morning to get answers, and her number's disconnected." I didn't respond. Just waited. "Dad, I need you to know something." He looked up at me, eyes filled with pain. "I've spent the last 12 hours replaying everything. Every conversation. Every moment. And I see it now. The manipulation. The lies. The way she asked about the house and the money and everything you had. I was so blind." "Love makes us blind sometimes," I said. "It's not an excuse." His voice broke. "You're my father. You've never lied to me. Never hurt me. And I chose to believe her over you. I kicked you out of my wedding. I called you dangerous." The shame in his voice was thick. Heavy. "I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. I took a sip of my coffee. It was too hot, burned my tongue a little, but I didn't care. "You can't fix it overnight, son. But you can start by being honest. With yourself, and with me." "I'm listening." "Why did you believe her so fast?" He flinched at the question. Looked away. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." Silence stretched between us. Finally he spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted so badly for it to work. After Sarah left me, after 3 years alone, I thought Selena was my second chance. My proof that I could be loved again. And when she said you hit her, part of me thought, maybe you just didn't understand her. Maybe you were jealous of losing me." The words stung, but I understood them. Grief and loneliness make us desperate. Make us cling to people who don't deserve us. "I wasn't jealous, Bennett. I was worried. Because I saw things you didn't want to see." He nodded. "I know that now." We sat in silence for a while. The clock on the wall ticked. Outside, birds sang. Life kept moving even when ours felt frozen. "What happens now?" Bennett asked. Now you figure out who you are without her. You take time. You heal. And you learn to trust your instincts again. And us. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. Saw the boy who used to help me build birdhouses in the garage. The teenager who cried when Lorraine died. The man who'd lost his way but was trying to find it again. We'll get there, I said. But it's going to take time. And it's going to take you showing me, not just telling me. He nodded. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. Start by finishing that coffee and helping me fix the back porch. The railing's been loose for a month. A small smile cracked through his pain. Yeah, okay. We worked in silence that afternoon, measuring wood, hammering nails, sanding rough edges. It felt good, familiar, like we were building something together again, even if it was just a porch railing. As the sun started to set, Bennett paused, holding a hammer in his hand. Dad, can I ask you something? Go ahead. How did you know she was lying? Like, deep down, how did you know? I thought about that. About Selena's cold eyes and calculated questions. About the way she looked at my house like she was appraising it for sale. Your mother used to say that you can tell a lot about people by what they notice. Good people notice kindness. Selfish people notice value. Selena never once asked me about Lorraine's life. Only about what she left behind. Bennett absorbed that. I should have seen it. You will next time. Pain's a good teacher. We finished the railing just as darkness fell. Bennett stood back, admiring our work. Looks solid. It is. We did good. He turned to me, and for the first time in days, I saw something other than shame in his eyes. I saw gratitude. Thank you, Dad, for not giving up on me. I'm your father. That's not something I know how to do. He hugged me then, tight. Like he was afraid I'd disappear if he let go. And I hugged him back, feeling the weight of everything we'd been through pressing between us. When he finally pulled away, he wiped his eyes. I'll come by tomorrow. Help with whatever else needs fixing. I'd like that. After he left, I sat on the porch in Lorraine's old rocking chair. The new railing was smooth under my hand. Sturdy. The way things should be. Somewhere out there, Selena Hartwell was probably spinning new lies to new people. But that wasn't my problem anymore. My problem was healing the relationship with my son. And slowly, one nail at a time, we were doing exactly that. But the story wasn't over yet. Because 2 days later, I got a phone call that changed everything again. The call came on a Thursday morning while I was making breakfast. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. Mr. Durrell? A woman's voice. Professional. Cautious. Speaking. My name is Patricia Simmons. I'm an attorney in Charleston. I represent a former client of yours, in a manner of speaking. I frowned. I'm not following. Selena Hartwell. My blood went cold. I don't have anything to say to her or anyone representing her. Please, Mr. Durrell, just hear me out. I'm not calling on her behalf. I'm calling because I think you deserve to know what you're dealing with. I sat down at the kitchen table. I'm listening. Selena was engaged to another man 2 years ago. My brother. His name was David. She accused him of abuse too. Filed a restraining order. Tried to get him arrested. Nearly destroyed his career. The room felt like it was tilting. What happened? He had security footage too. From his home camera system. Showed her staging everything. We got the charges dropped, but the damage was done. He lost his job. His reputation. It took him a year to rebuild his life. Why are you telling me this? Because when I heard what happened at your son's wedding, I knew it was her. Same pattern. Same lies. And I wanted you to know you're not the first. She's done this before. My hands were shaking. How many times? At least twice that I know of. Maybe more. She finds men with something to gain. Usually something involving inheritance or property. Gets close to them. Then when family members get in the way, she eliminates them. Not physically, but socially. Destroys their credibility so nobody believes them when they try to warn the victim. I felt sick. Your brother. Is he okay now? He's rebuilding. But it's been hard. The thing is, Mr. Durrell, Selena's smart. She never stays in one place long enough for a pattern to form. She moves towns. Changes her story slightly. Finds new targets. So she's just going to keep doing this. Unless someone stops her. Unless there's enough evidence and enough victims willing to come forward. I understood what she was asking. You want me to testify? If there's ever a case against her. I'm putting together a file. Documentation of her history. If enough of us speak up, maybe we can prevent her from doing this to someone else. I thought about Bennett. About how close he'd come to marrying her. About what would have happened if Raymond hadn't seen that footage. She would have isolated him from me. Taken control of his life. Slowly drained him of everything he had. Send me whatever you need, I said. I'll sign it. Testify. Whatever it takes. Patricia's voice softened. Thank you. And Mr. Durrell? I'm glad your son has you. David didn't have anyone. That's what made him so vulnerable. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, coffee going cold in front of me. Selena wasn't just a liar. She was a predator. Calculated. Experienced. Dangerous. And Bennett had almost married her. That afternoon, when Bennett showed up to help me replace the mailbox post, I told him about the call. Watched his face go from shock to horror to something close to rage. There were others, he said. She's done this before? At least twice. He sat down hard on the porch steps, head in his hands. I could have lost everything. My relationship with you. My house. My savings. Everything. But you didn't. Only because of luck. Because Raymond happened to be reviewing that footage. Not luck, I said. Truth. It always finds a way out. He looked up at me. What if it hadn't, though? What if there'd been no cameras? No proof? Would you have just accepted everyone thinking you were violent? I thought about that. I'd have lived with the truth even if nobody else believed it. Because my integrity isn't determined by what other people think. It's determined by what I know to be true. Bennett shook his head. I don't know if I could have done that. Yes, you could. Because you're my son. And I raised you to value truth over comfort. We worked on the mailbox post together. Digging out the old concrete. Mixing new concrete. Setting the post straight and level. Simple work. Honest work. The kind that makes you feel like you're building something that'll last. As we finished, Bennett wiped sweat from his forehead. Dad, I need to tell you something. Go ahead. I've been thinking about moving back home. Just for a while. While I figure things out. My heart jumped, but I kept my face neutral. You sure about that? I'm sure that I need to be around someone who actually gives a damn about me. Someone who'd tell me the truth even when it's hard to hear. I nodded. Your room's still there. Same as you left it. Even after everything. Especially after everything. We carried the tools back to the garage, and I felt something shift between us. Not completely healed. Not completely back to normal. But better. Closer. That night, I pulled out Lorraine's wedding ring again. Held it up to the light. Thought about how I'd planned to give it to Bennett on his wedding day. How I'd put it back in my pocket instead. Maybe someday he'd find someone worthy of it. Someone who'd see him for who he really was. Someone who'd value family instead of trying to destroy it. But that was a long way off. For now, we had work to do. Healing. Rebuilding. Learning to trust again. And sometimes, that's enough. The phone call from Patricia had reminded me of something important though. This wasn't just about me and Bennett anymore. It was about stopping Selena from doing this to someone else. Bennett moved back home the following weekend. Didn't bring much. Just some clothes, his laptop, a few books. He set up in his old room, and for the first few days, we moved around each other carefully. Like dancers learning new steps. He'd wake up early and make coffee. I'd cook breakfast. We'd eat together without talking much, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was healing. Sometimes the best conversations happen without words. One morning, about a week after he moved in, Bennett came downstairs holding something in his hand. An old photograph. Him and Lorraine in the garden, both covered in dirt, laughing. He was maybe 8 years old in the picture. I found this in my closet, he said. Forgot I still had it. I smiled. Your mother loved that garden. Spent every spring morning out there planting something new. I remember. She used to let me help. Even when I pulled out flowers instead of weeds. She said mistakes were just learning in disguise. Bennett set the photo on the kitchen counter, staring at it. I wish she was here. She'd know what to say to me right now. She'd probably tell you to stop feeling sorry for yourself and get to work fixing what's broken. He laughed. Actually laughed. First real laugh I'd heard from him in weeks. Yeah, that sounds like Mom. We spent that day sorting through old boxes in the attic. Found more photos. Letters. Lorraine's old recipe cards. Bennett held each item like it was precious. Like he was trying to remember who he used to be before Selena. As we worked, he started talking. Really talking. About how lonely he'd been after his last relationship ended. How Selena had seemed like an answer to prayers he didn't know he'd been praying. How she'd slowly isolated him from friends, from co-workers, from me. How she'd made him feel like he was lucky she chose him. That's how they work, I said. People like her. They find your weak spots and press on them until you forget you were ever strong. I felt so stupid, Bennett admitted. Like I should have seen it. Being trusting isn't the same as being stupid. She was good at what she did. She'd had practice. Over the next few weeks, Bennett threw himself into helping around the house. Fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom. Repaired the fence in the backyard. Painted the garage door. Every project he completed, I could see him getting a little bit stronger. A little more like himself. One evening, we were sitting on the porch after dinner when he said, Dad, I've been thinking about what Patricia told you. About Selena doing this to other people. What about it? I want to help. Document everything. Make a statement. Whatever she needs to build that case. I looked at him. You sure? It means reliving everything. I'm sure. Because if I don't, and she does this to someone else, I'll never forgive myself. Pride swelled in my chest. This was the son I'd raised. The one who stood up when standing up was hard. Who did the right thing even when it hurt. Then we'll do it together, I said. The next day, we contacted Patricia. Spent hours on the phone going over everything. Every conversation. Every red flag. Every lie. Bennett's voice shook sometimes as he talked, but he didn't stop. He pushed through. Patricia was grateful. Said our testimonies, combined with the security footage and statements from her brother, might actually be enough to warn others. Maybe even prevent Selena from getting close to her next victim. As weeks turned into months, life started finding a rhythm again. Bennett got a new job. Started going to therapy to work through what happened. Slowly reconnected with friends he'd pushed away during his time with Selena. And every evening, he'd come home and we'd have dinner together. Talk about our days. Watch old westerns on TV. Simple things. Normal things. The kind of things I'd missed. One night, about 3 months after the failed wedding, Bennett came home with something in his hand. A small package wrapped in brown paper. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." I unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a wooden picture frame. Handmade. Beautifully crafted. And inside the frame was the photo of Lorraine and Bennett in the garden. "You made this?" I asked. "Took a woodworking class. Thought it was time I learned some of your skills." My throat tightened. I ran my fingers over the smooth wood. "It's perfect. I figured we could hang it in the living room. So Mom's always with us." We hung it above the fireplace that night. Stood back and looked at it together. Lorraine's smile seemed to fill the whole room. "She'd be proud of you," I said quietly. "Of how you're handling all this. She'd be proud of you too. For not giving up on me when I gave up on you." I put my hand on his shoulder. "That's not something fathers do, son. We don't give up. We just wait for our kids to find their way back." Bennett looked at me, eyes shining. "I'm glad I found my way back." "So am I." That night, after Bennett went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, looking at Lorraine's picture. Thought about everything we'd been through. The lies. The betrayal. The pain. But also the healing. The rebuilding. The slow return to trust. Truth had won. Not through violence or revenge, but through patience and time. And sometimes, that's the strongest kind of victory. But there was one more thing I needed to do. One more piece to put in place before this story could really end. I needed to give Bennett something his mother would have wanted him to have. 6 months after the wedding that never happened, Bennett came home with news. He'd been offered a promotion at work. Better pay. More responsibility. A chance to rebuild the savings he depleted trying to plan a life with Selena. We celebrated with steaks on the grill and Lorraine's old potato salad recipe that I'd finally learned to make right. Bennett laughed more that night than I'd heard in years. Real laughter. The kind that comes from actual happiness, not from trying to fill silence. As we sat on the porch watching the sunset, he said, "You know what's weird? I feel more myself now than I did when I was with her. Like I'd forgotten who I was." That's what happens when you try to be who someone else wants you to be. You lose yourself piece by piece until there's nothing left but their version of you. He nodded. "I won't make that mistake again." Good. Because the right person won't ask you to change. They'll love who you already are. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Bennett said, "I've been thinking about dating again. Nothing serious. Just getting back out there. How do you feel about that?" Terrified. He laughed. "But also ready. I think I finally know what to look for now. What real love looks like versus manipulation. What does it look like?" He thought about that. Like this. Like sitting on a porch with someone who's seen you at your worst and still wants to have dinner with you. Like honest conversations even when they're hard. Like fixing fences together and not keeping score of who does more work. I smiled. Your mother would say you're finally growing up. Better late than never. As the stars started appearing, I stood up and went inside. Came back with a small velvet box I'd been carrying the day of his wedding. The one I'd put back in my pocket when everything fell apart. "What's that?" Bennett asked. I handed it to him. "Open it." His hands shook slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside was Lorraine's wedding ring. Simple gold band with a small diamond. Nothing fancy. But it had been on her finger for 40 years. "Dad, I can't." "Yes, you can. Your mother wanted you to have this. To give to someone who deserved it. Someone who'd understand what it represents." But after what happened, you learned what matters. You learned the difference between appearance and truth. Between charm and character. When you find someone worthy of this ring, you'll know. And you won't doubt it. Bennett held the ring up to the fading light, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. I'll keep it safe until I find her." "I know you will." We sat together until full dark, talking about Lorraine. Sharing memories. Laughing at stories we'd told 100 times before. It felt like she was right there with us. Smiling. Proud of the men we'd become through hardship. The next morning, Patricia called with an update. Her case against Selena was moving forward. 3 other victims had come forward after hearing about what happened at Bennett's wedding. All with similar stories. All with evidence of her manipulation and fraud. "She's not going to be able to do this anymore," Patricia said. "Between all of you, we have enough to file criminal charges. And at minimum, we can make sure her pattern is documented. Searchable. So the next time she tries this, people will find the truth." After I hung up, I told Bennett. Watched relief wash over his face. "So it's really over," he said. "It's over." He exhaled slowly. "Good. Now we can really move forward." And we did. Bennett found an apartment closer to his new job, but still came for dinner twice a week. Started dating a teacher he met through a friend. Nice woman. Kind eyes. Patient. She didn't ask about his past until he was ready to share it. I started attending the senior woodworking group at the community center. Made some new friends. Started a project building birdhouses for the local parks. Kept busy. Kept living. Life didn't go back to how it was before Selena. It went forward to something new. Something different. Maybe even something better. Because we'd learned lessons that only come through fire. About trust. About truth. About the importance of standing firm even when the world thinks you're wrong. One Sunday afternoon, about a year after everything happened, I was sitting on my porch when Bennett pulled up. He had his girlfriend Sarah with him. They walked up the path holding hands, both smiling. "Dad," Bennett said, "Sarah and I have something to tell you." I looked at them. Saw the joy in their eyes. The peace. The rightness of it. "We're engaged," Sarah said, holding up her hand. On her finger was Lorraine's ring. My vision blurred with tears. "When did this happen?" "Last night." I took her to the spot where Mom and I used to plant flowers. Told her the whole story. About Selena. About you. About everything. And I asked her to marry me with the ring that represents the best love I've ever known. Sarah stepped forward and hugged me. "Mr. Durrell, I promise I'll honor this ring. And your family. And the love it represents." "I know you will," I said. "I can see it in your eyes." And I could. Unlike Selena's cold calculation, Sarah's eyes were warm. Genuine. Full of love for my son that had nothing to do with what he owned and everything to do with who he was. That evening, the 3 of us had dinner together. Laughed. Made plans. Talked about a small wedding. Intimate. Real. Nothing fake or performative. As they were leaving, Bennett hugged me tight. "Thank you, Dad. For everything. For not letting me marry the wrong woman. For teaching me what real love looks like. For being patient while I found my way back." "That's what fathers do," I said. After they drove away, I sat on the porch alone, watching the sun set behind the oak tree where Lorraine and I used to sit. The tree where Bennett had proposed to Sarah. The tree that had witnessed so much of our family's story. And I thought about how betrayal doesn't always win. How lies don't always last. How truth, given enough time and patience, will always find its way into the light. Selena Hartwell had tried to destroy me. Tried to steal my son. Tried to break apart everything I'd built over a lifetime. But she'd failed. Not because I fought back with rage or revenge, but because I stood firm in the truth and waited for it to reveal itself. Sometimes justice doesn't need fire. Sometimes quiet patience burns brighter than any anger ever could. And as I sat there in the fading light, surrounded by memories of Lorraine and hope for Bennett's future, I realized something important. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with peace. With healing. With truth winning not because it shouted the loudest, but because it refused to stay buried. If this story taught you anything about the power of truth, the importance of patience, or the strength it takes to stand firm when everyone doubts you, then share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more stories about real justice, real healing, and real love. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done in my situation. Your story might inspire someone else who's fighting their own battle against lies. Because at the end of the day, truth doesn't need our help to win. It just needs us to hold on long enough for the light to find it. And it always does.